I had no helicopter for a day or so. There were consequences for such an absurd operation. First of all, no more CS gas operations. CS gas was a riot gas that burned the eyes and lungs, and what we had as gas masks made it difficult to see anything through them. Also, all helicopter pilots in our company were issued their own M16s and ammo besides their .38 caliber revolvers. That alleviates the crew chiefs giving up their M16s in a fast-moving situation. More firepower when shot down. The guys on the operation, both in the infantry and in the flight crews, felt that the order to leave 2 helicopters and the 20 guys on the ground to their separate fate and not immediately land everyone in the area was abandoning their fellow soldiers. Everyone should either live together or die together, they figured. We all agreed on that point. The company commander, or whoever it was that gave that order, was transferred out of the command from what I heard. We were all in combat together and should stick together. Also, from what I heard, the rest of the company that day was landed in a clearing about 2 miles from us and was having a hard time getting to us, as they also were under attack by the NVA. The whole operation was a big mess, as we all felt it would be from the start. But the instigator of the mess probably got a pat on the back from generals, as he had dead and wounded soldiers as casualties, showing that he was not afraid of fighting and getting his troopers killed, even though he never himself went out into the field. There was talk of not obeying orders if they seemed crazy. This we all agreed upon. My helicopter went spinning and crashing down because our vertical fin and tail rotor were cut off by the spinning rotor blade of the helicopter behind us. With gas masks on and trying to land in a tight 5-ship LZ and getting riddled with bullets, it was understandable what happened. It was a mid-air collision caused by the pilot behind us possibly getting shot. I don't remember all the exact details, but we were very lucky both helicopters that crashed did not tip over on the ground and explode into 2 fireballs that would have killed all on board. It was with great skill that both pilots kept enough control of the helicopters in a crash situation that saved all our lives by landing in an upright position. The rest of the company securing the area, both helicopters were airlifted out from the crash site by Chinook helicopters. I got to work on my helicopter with the maintenance crew the next day. New tail boom and tail rotor assembly and many other things had to be replaced. The maintenance crews were very interested in my story of what happened. Although the story was not an inducement to get volunteers for crew chiefs from the maintenance crews. It was just too dangerous out there, they said. No doubt about that. But I respected the maintenance crews a lot. We depended on each other. They kept us flying and did great mechanical work under hot and very long hour conditions. They usually worked 18 hours a day. We very much respected each other for sure. 3 days later, I was back in the air on my helicopter. The Army or whoever thought that what we needed in the wooded areas where landing zone clearings were scarce is artillery strikes in the woods to clear landing zones for us. Most all of the woods were cleaned of leaves from defoliants already, but the tree trunks and branches were everywhere. We had 60 fellows on 10 helicopters as usual and went to an area where artillery had struck a few minutes ago, and we were to use this area as an LZ. As we approached, we could see that the LZ was impossible to land in, as trees were sticking up everywhere and craters were everywhere besides. So for a change, we decided not to carry out orders that were not right. We took the troops to Tainin base camp, which was safe, and then try to figure something else out. I think it was a rare day without a mission or getting shot at. One thing about artillery strikes is that helicopters and other aircraft could be blown apart by their own artillery when flying through the trajectory of the artillery shells. And it did happen, but not to us as far as we know. Some helicopters blew up in the air at night, killing all on board on flare missions. But it was thought that the reason for that was probably a flare going off inside the helicopter instead from a lanyard drop. We were flying a typical mission at a high elevation to pick up some infantry when it was reported that a crew chief was shot dead sitting in his gunner's seat. Apparently he was alive minutes before, so a stray round from below had to hit him. Stray, but certainly aimed at our flight. It hit him between the eyebrows, right in the center of his head. The round did not go through his head because it was such a distant shot. When the flight landed, many crew members wanted to see the perfect random shot in a macabre way. I did not go over and see the poor guys. I didn't like to look at dead people if I could avoid it. I always thought a prolonged look at dead people is bad luck and disrespect of the dead, and I never took pictures of dead bodies for the same reasons. Our helicopters in flight, I would say, always were targets of someone with a rifle on the ground. This was just a random shot from a long distance. The crew chief did not shoot himself as the bullet was from an AK-47. Besides, if a crew chief wanted to quit combat, he could just quit and become a mechanic back at the base camp. Anyone could quit combat flight anytime that he wished, no questions asked. Many crew chiefs did quit flying once they realized how dangerous it was to be doing combat assaults almost every day, all day. So did many gunners and even pilots. The gunners would go back to their infantry, artillery, truck driving, or whatever they were doing before. The pilots would be found a usually safe ground job like in a headquarters outfit. It's one thing for a pilot to fly a helicopter, and it's another thing to fly a helicopter while bullets are hitting your aircraft and the people in it. Some people are just not built for bullet-to-bullet combat. Actually, I don't think anyone is. It's a matter of forcing oneself to deal with it or not. Not would be best. About this time, I was awarded my first air medal with Valor device. It was for heroism during grueling insertions in a hotly contested battle in the Pineapple area. I don't think this particular prolonged battle was any different than a lot of them we did at the time, but if medals for Valor were to be issued by the Army, they had to name a specific time, incident, and place. Seeing how I was on a chopper as a machine gunner, I had no place to cringe and hide. Ha! And our best defense was to keep on shooting and hit the guys shooting at us before they hit us. It was our only option. Our only defense was putting a lot of bullets accurately into the enemy positions. The Pineapple was called that because it was an abandoned area where pineapple plantations used to be. Certain areas where we worked were called different names, like the rubber plantation, the hobo woods, the iron triangle, the parrot's beak, the fish hook, the horseshoe, Nui Badin, and some others. And every single one of them in 1968 were very bad news areas. Very bad. From Cu Chi to Cambodia, and in Cambodia, there were tens of thousands of well-armed and supplied NVA-VC units waiting to attack any American soldiers foolish enough to land in their areas. And we were the foolish ones landing in their areas. To me, any infantry or helicopter crew members and some soldiers and artillery outposts working in these areas were automatic heroes. Acts of heroism were performed every hour of every day in these areas by both our troopers and the NVA-VC. Hard, tough fighting on both sides. I had great respect for not only our soldiers but also for the NVA-VC. In the letters we sent back home, none of us wanted to worry our families back home. Like, oh, the weather here is hot and the country's very green and beautiful. We fly around and find not much action going on. Actually, it is quite pleasant duty. The food is all right and we live in hooches. No so-and-so was killed the other day. Actually, our letters were a lot like what Army was feeding the American people. No problems. We left out the combat part of the whole thing. I did complain about the sea rations one day in a letter and said that a can of dog food would probably taste better than the main meal can of the sea ration. I received a can of dog food in the mail and opened it and tasted it. We passed it around, and 6 of us that tried it agreed that it tasted better than most sea rations. Ha!